Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. This time, we're going deep into some excerpts from the Quran,
Okay.
specifically the 14th chapter titled Ibrahim.
All right.
Now, before you think this is a deep dive into, religious doctrine, don't worry.
Yeah.
We're much more interested in exploring the core stories and messages
Right.
within this chapter and understanding why they resonate with so many people worldwide.
It's a fascinating chapter, really. It
Yeah.
blends, stories of prophets, reflections on Allah's power,
Yeah.
and calls for gratitude and trust,
Right.
all woven together to offer a unique perspective on how to live a meaningful life.
Okay, so the chapter begins with this really powerful image
Yeah.
of bringing humanity from darkness to light.
Mm-hmm.
What a universal message, right?
Absolutely.
I think we've all felt that longing for guidance at
Yeah.
some point in our lives.
This idea of seeking guidance is central to the Quran's message.
Yeah.
And the opening verses make it clear that this scripture is meant to illuminate the path towards Allah.
It's all about understanding and submitting to a higher power.
Interesting. So speaking of guidance,
Right.
the chapter then delves into these captivating stories about prophets like Moses, Noah, Ayad, and Tammud.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting how each prophet struggles to convey Allah's message.
Yeah.
They all face doubt and resistance,
Right.
which feels very human and relatable.
You're right. That human element really shines through.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is that verse 9 specifically states that these stories aren't unique to Islam.
Okay.
They're presented as part of a larger narrative, almost like a shared heritage of how humanity relates to the divine.
Right.
I mean, who hasn't faced challenges when trying to lead or stay true to their beliefs?
It's like those classic hero's journey stories you see in movies and books, but with a spiritual twist.
Yeah.
And then, bam, the chapter hits you with these vivid descriptions of paradise and hell, rewards for the faithful, and punishments for those who disbelieve.
Yeah.
Verses 16 and 17, in particular, paint a pretty intense picture of hell. Yeah, it's definitely not subtle.
Why do you think the Quran uses such strong language?
But I think those descriptions serve a purpose.
Yeah.
They highlight the seriousness of the choices we make
Yeah.
and the importance of aligning ourselves with Allah's will.
Right.
It's a reminder that actions have consequences, both in this life and in the afterlife.
Wow. That's heavy stuff. It definitely makes you think about the concept of the day the reckoning takes place, as described in verse 41.
Right.
Could you explain that a bit more for our listeners who may not be familiar with it?
Sure. In Islamic belief, the day of reckoning is the day when all of humanity will be judged by Allah for their deeds in this life.
Okay.
It's the ultimate moment of accountability,
Yeah.
where everyone's actions, intentions, and choices will be laid bare.
So it's not just about following rules blindly,
Right.
but understanding that your choices have real weight
Yeah.
and that you'll ultimately be held responsible for them.
Absolutely.
That connects back to the whole idea of Allah's power, which is such a dominant theme throughout the chapter.
Absolutely. Verses 19 and 20 are particularly striking in how they depict Allah as the ultimate creator, capable of wiping out existence and starting anew with ease.
Right.
It's a powerful assertion of his absolute dominion over the universe.
It's like we often marvel at the power of nature, but these verses take it to a whole other level.
Yeah.
But then you have verses 32 through 34, which show a different side of Allah's power.
Right.
The provider, the sustainer, the sun, the moon, the rivers, the fruits.
Yeah.
All these blessings are presented as gifts from Allah.
It's true.
It makes you realize how much we take for granted, doesn't it?
It really does. The chapter emphasizes the importance of recognizing and appreciating Allah's blessings.
Yeah.
Verse 7 states that if you are grateful, Allah will grant you increase, but if you are ungrateful,
Right.
his punishment is severe.
Oh, wow.
It's a message that transcends religious boundaries.
Yeah.
We should all strive to be more thankful for what we have.
Totally.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up
Right.
in the hustle and bustle of life.
Yeah.
And forget to appreciate the simple things,
Sure.
like the sun shining or the food on our tables.
Yeah.
This chapter really encourages us to take a step back and be thankful
Yeah.
for those blessings.
Totally. And, speaking of appreciating blessings,
Yeah.
that brings us to the story of Abraham,
Right.
which is a central theme in this chapter.
Mm.
His prayer in verses 35 to 37 shows his deep devotion to Allah
Yes.
and his desire for peace and guidance for himself and his offspring.
And what's really interesting is how Abraham, or Ibrahim as he's known in Arabic,
Right.
is a key figure in Islam, Christianity, and Judaism.
Wow.
It's almost like a reminder that there's a shared heritage,
Right.
a common thread running through these different belief systems.
Wow, that's a powerful point.
Yeah.
It highlights this interconnectedness between faiths that we often overlook.
Right.
And within Abraham's story, you see this strong emphasis on trust and surrender to Allah's plan, even when things are tough.
Absolutely.
Verses 11 and 12 specifically speak to this. Have you ever experienced a situation in your life where you had to really lean on your faith to get through a difficult time?
Oh, absolutely. I think everyone goes through periods of doubt and uncertainty.
Yeah.
But for me, those verses are a source of comfort.
Okay.
They remind me that even when things feel chaotic, there's a greater plan at play.
Yeah.
It's not about passive acceptance,
Right.
but rather about finding strength and resilience in the face of challenges,
Right.
knowing that you're not alone in your struggles.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It's like you're not expected to have all the answers or figure everything out on your own.
Right.
There's this higher power guiding and supporting you, even when you can't see the way forward.
Exactly. And, it's interesting because along with trust and surrender, there's also this recurring theme of idol worship.
Oh, right.
That Abraham seems really concerned about.
His prayer in verse 35 specifically asks Allah to keep him and his sons away from worshiping idols. Why is that such a significant theme in the Quran?
Well, in Islam, the belief in one God, Allah, is paramount.
Okay.
Idol worship represents the opposite of that.
Right.
It's about putting your faith in something created rather than the creator.
Yeah.
The Quran challenges people to think critically about what they're devoting their lives to.
Right.
It's asking, are these idols, these temporary things, really worth your ultimate allegiance?
Yeah.
Or is there something greater out there?
That's a powerful way to put it. It's not just about blindly following rules, but about engaging in that internal reflection.
Right.
Asking yourself tough questions about your beliefs and values.
Exactly. And, this emphasis on personal accountability really comes through in the closing verses of the chapter.
Okay.
Verses 51 and 52.
How so?
Well, they emphasize Allah's justice and the idea that this message is both a warning and a reminder. It's like a wake-up call to take responsibility for your actions and make choices that align with Allah's will.
Right.
And even amidst all this talk about punishment and hellfire, there's also this beautiful promise of truth and justice.
So it's not just about fear and punishment, but also about recognizing the ultimate fairness of the divine plan.
Right. And speaking of accountability, there's this really intriguing part where Satan makes a statement in verse 22.
Okay.
It's almost like he's washing his hands of any responsibility, saying, hey, I just told you it was your choice to follow me.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Yeah.
It seems like it's kind of shifting blame away from Satan and putting it all on humans.
It's definitely a thought-provoking passage.
Yeah.
It highlights the complex interplay of free will and divine decree in Islam.
Okay.
On one hand, Satan is there to tempt and deceive.
Right.
But ultimately, it's our choices that determine our fate.
So even though there's a divine plan, you still have the agency to make your own choices, which is a pretty empowering concept.
It is. And navigating those choices isn't always easy.
Right.
There will be temptations, doubts, and setbacks along the way.
Yeah.
But what this chapter ultimately emphasizes is the importance of seeking knowledge, reflecting on your actions, and striving to live a life that is pleasing to Allah.
It's almost like you're given this map.
Right.
But you still have to choose which path to take and deal with the challenges that come with it.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And, sometimes we might stray from the path or make mistakes. But the Quran is also full of messages of hope and redemption.
Okay.
Even when you mess up, there's always a chance to course correct, to seek forgiveness, and return to the right way.
It's reassuring to know that you're not condemned for your mistakes.
Right.
That there's always a path back to righteousness.
Absolutely. Yeah. The Quran acknowledges that we're human, we make mistakes, but it also emphasizes that we're capable of growth, change, and ultimately returning to Allah's grace.
It's like we're all on this incredible journey of self-discovery, trying to figure out our place in the world and our relationship with something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
And this chapter from the Quran, with its stories and messages, offers guidance for that journey.
What I find fascinating is that while the Quran provides direction, it also leaves room for personal interpretation and reflection.
Okay.
It encourages you to engage with its teachings
Yeah.
and apply them to your own life in a way that makes sense for you.
So it's not about blind faith or just following rules without understanding, but
Right.
about seeking knowledge,
Yeah.
contemplating the deeper meaning, and finding your own connection to the divine.
Precisely. And that's what makes religious texts like the Quran so enduring.
Yeah.
They offer a foundation of belief, but also invite you to explore,
Right.
question,
Right.
and discover your own understanding of faith.
It's like they spark these big questions about life, death, purpose,
Yeah.
and our place in the world. And the answers might not always be clear-cut,
Right.
but the journey of seeking those answers is where the real growth happens.
That's such a great point.
Yeah.
It's not about having all the answers,
Right.
but about embarking on a lifelong journey of learning, questioning,
Yeah.
and refining our understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
So for our listeners who might be hearing about the Quran for the first time,
Yeah.
what would you say are the key takeaways from this chapter? Abraham.
This chapter offers a rich tapestry of themes that can resonate with people from all walks of life.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds us to seek guidance, trust in a higher power,
Yeah.
and be mindful of the consequences of our actions.
Okay.
It encourages us to appreciate the good things in our lives
Right.
and find strength when facing challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps most importantly, it encourages us to reflect on our values and beliefs,
Okay.
constantly seek knowledge and understanding,
Yeah.
and strive to live a life filled with purpose and meaning.
That's a beautiful way to sum it up. It reminds us that even though these texts were written centuries ago, the messages they contain are still so relevant today.
Absolutely.
They offer timeless wisdom that can guide us on our own personal journeys.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of engaging with religious texts
Right.
from different cultures and belief systems.
Yeah.
They challenge us to think critically, expand our perspectives, and appreciate the incredible diversity of human thought and experience.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Quran,
Okay.
what final thought would you leave our listeners with?
The Quran, like many religious texts,
Yeah.
is a source of inspiration, guidance, and wisdom that invites contemplation and interpretation.
Right.
It's not about rigid rules, but about encouraging you to reflect on your relationship with the divine, with yourself, and with the world around you.
Okay.
If you're curious, I encourage you to explore the Quran or other religious texts.
Right.
You might be surprised by what you discover and how it can enrich your understanding of life's big questions.
Beautifully said. And who knows, maybe this deep dive has sparked your curiosity to learn more.
Yeah.
There's a whole world of knowledge and perspectives out there waiting to be discovered.
That's right.
And we encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Awesome.
Until next time,